But what they're doing at CERN is no different than this Freemason manual where they're saying between the sun and the moon, the master mason is born, an old ritual that they do, but also CERN activating and they're doing the ritualistic dances. And then there's the serpent, where we talked about the rockets. A lot of people have been talking about this, as a matter of fact, but I'm gonna put it into a little bit higher perspective. So it's a serpent deity, and then there's serpent mounds that this guy's gonna talk about. But also, you gotta look at the Large Hadron Collider. It has a giant snake transmission line that was installed in 2019. This is what it looks like. And there's an interaction of energy between the snake, CERN, and I will let you listen to this video clip right here that this guy talking about.
Okay, folks, I've been to CERN. CERN is very, very weird. CERN is built on the site of the ancient temple of Apollyon. Tom Horn, who passed away last year, very untimely, wrote about this. So CERN is at this ancient temple. They're going to open up and start using CERN and testing it the day of the eclipse. I mean, what are we looking at here? Here's what I think is going on. They, the powers that be, are opening up CERN in coordination with the eclipse to open up a gateway, a portal. Now, when you go to the Serpent Mound in Ohio, it doesn't look anything like CERN, but it's ancient. And it's just in Ohio, and it's the longest serpent effigy on the planet. Now, some people will dispute that, that's fine, but it's the one that I go to. And that serpent mound is, the serpent is undulating, and the serpent's mouth is open like this. Guess what? The whole thing is built on the solstices, the equinoxes. They're big into this. And these sites are charged. The site at CERN is charged. The Serpent Mound in Ohio is a charged site.
So we're going to show that Serpent Mound here he's talking about right here. Here it is on screen. So energy interaction, charged particles. This mount was put here years ago. So for CERN to say that the serpent deity, NASA's APEP mission is set to fire rockets during the eclipse, and then they're going to use CERN. This shows that some type of interaction between CERN and this snake is going to be definitely happening, especially with the transmission line that I was just showing you.
Additionally, and perhaps even more important, there's a significant section of CERN that is built upon the Saint Genus Poili, which is a commune in Ain, a department of France. In Roman times, the Saint Genus Poili was called Apolliacum, but the town and a temple were dedicated there in ancient times to Apollyon, the destroyer, the Shiva Horus, if you will. Apollyon is also the angel of the bottomless pit, referred to in Revelation 9:11. And then there is a connection between CERN and the Gothard Base Tunnel, the GBT, which is the world's deepest and longest tunnel system, consisting of two parallel passages, each moving in a single direction on a single track. The GBT passes directly beneath St. Gothard's Pass, a strategic north-south corridor that connects northern and southern Switzerland. The connection to the Large Hadron Collider has to be made primarily because of the bizarre opening ceremony that was live streamed to the entire world on June 1, 2016, that included this highly occult, demonic dance with characterization, beginning with a call to unite the religions of the world by conducting an interfaith blessing of the tunnel beside a statue of St. Barbara, the patron saint of miners. Following the blessing at the statue of St. Barbara, the press, along with visiting dignitaries, also paid tribute to the 9 miners who had lost their lives during construction of the tunnel. Bodio's southern portal provided the visiting dignitaries a disturbing parade, really, of miners, erotic dancers, zombies, fallen angels, all of whom were obeying the call of what they called the shepherd, whose yodels invoked the appearance of the event's infernal master of ceremonies, a goat man, portrayed by a young and energetic dancing male. This creature is shown with a Baphomet headdress, a goat demon's head, if you will, and a goat body costume with a hairy pelt. And then it had a formal tuxedo over the top.
Recently, though, they came out talking about they found fourth dimensional particles. And when they say fourth dimensional, we're talking about different entities and stuff like that. This is something they've done for years, the spiritual hyperplane, they call it, where they knew these beings were existing and they were going deep into trying to figure out what they were seeing. And we're going to go into it here. Physicists found a ghost haunting the world's most famous particle accelerator. And then we read into it. What does it say here? It says CERN's superproton synchrotron will turn 50 in 2026, and it has a resonant ghost. It says modeling a 3D shape over time requires a 4D system of equations. In a new research published in journal Nature Physics, scientists at CERN's Switzerland, Goethe University of Frankfurt in Germany announced they had isolated a resonant ghost that affects how particles behave inside the superproton synchrotron, however you say it. It's a 3D shape and that shifts over time, meaning that it's best measured in fourth dimension. So they're basically now saying that we found the ghost and it's resonating in fourth dimension. And so when they open up the field of energy in this fourth dimension, and they also have the radar that's shooting the beams down to affect us, this is basically a true spiritual moment here that we have to be able to protect ourselves, because like we said, the occult rituals are basically moving forward.
The imagery was heavily evocative of the German and Bavarian Christmas demon known as Krampus. Now, according to tradition, Krampus accompanies St. Nicholas on his midwinter rounds with the intent to steal boys and girls, putting them into a basket carried on his back, or he may decide to beat them with branches for being naughty. Maurice Bruce published a book on pre-Christian alpine traditions in 1958, and he had this to say about the half-goat, half-demon entity. There seems to be little doubt as to the true identity, for in no other form is the full regalia of the horn god of the witches so well preserved. The birch, apart from its phallic significance, may have a connection with the initiation rites of certain witch covens, rites which entailed binding and scourging as a form of mock death. The chains could have been introduced in a Christian attempt to bind the devil, but again, they could be a remnant of pagan initiation rites. Many show the goat man in formal dress and a tuxedo-style cutaway formal coat and trousers, but with his usual horned goat face and always with his tongue extended. Now, this tongue out pose seems to be popular with ancient gods, whether they're Mayan, Hindu, Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, or even British. For some reason, the coat of arms from the Prince of Wales supports both a lion and a unicorn with their tongues extended, for instance. Now, pharmakia is the word that describes the ancient occultic effort to use mind-expanding drugs during rituals in order to open a doorway for making contact with unseen supernatural entities.
I don't really know of any ancient civilization which achieved a high level of functioning which didn't use psychedelics. Psychedelics were astonishingly widely used in the ancient world, and used very carefully, with great attention being paid to what we now call set and setting. So, for example, you can go to Chavin de Huantar, about 200 miles north of Lima, turn right, drive up into the Andes, 14,000 feet, drop down into the Chavin Valley, and you'll find yourself in an ancient archaeological site, the largest part of which are galleries below the ground, which were used in ceremony in ancient times, and that ceremony involved the San Pedro cactus. It involved, in which mescaline is the active ingredient. When the conquistadors came there, they couldn't understand what all this was about. Why had they created these great galleries? What was going on? We now know what was going on. They were creating a setting that would maximize the effect of the psychedelic of choice, which in their case was the San Pedro cactus. So no wonder when people went down into the Telestrion, into those darkened spaces which were subtly lit here and there, that they would have life-transforming experiences. Plato was an initiate, Sophocles was an initiate, Cicero was an initiate, Pindar was an initiate.
Entities, they are experienced as real, but they come from the collective unconscious.
The ancient symbol of the horned god, referenced by Maureen Bruce in the quote that I made a moment ago, it allows us to connect our goat demon from the opening ceremony at the GBT to CERN. Despite the fact that the Large Hadron Collider sits 3 to 4 hours down a twisty road from the location, the horned god's circular logic and passion for human depravity, Hernunos, as is sometimes called, or Cernunnos, or the Green Man of British lore, simply had to make an appearance at this occult ceremony. Josh Peck and I, and many other researchers, have written extensively regarding the in-game plans for tunneling beneath the earth and smashing atoms to smithereens as nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to open portals. But the opening ceremony at Gotthard made it clear that these portals are intended to do something else, and that is to release demonic entities. The twin tunnels of the Gotthard base tunnel commence with twin portals on a single track. These northward and southward journeys symbolize the death cycle of the Green Man, who dies in the fall and winter and rises in the spring summer. The tunnel ceremony was all about sex rights and rebirth, leading to a new world order that's a complete reversal of the Judeo-Christian design. This included the triple goddess and the horned god, along with human sacrifice and a return to pagan worship, all of which lie at the center of this nauseating ritual play, which you can probably still watch on YouTube. Dancers dressed as miners climbed this rock face, and they dug into the earth, so to speak, to unveil what was beneath the earth, a great machine formed from human arms that rotated and churned into various shapes and design, many of which resembled the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Once this opening was achieved, the miners stripped off their orange jumpsuit attire and took up arms. That is, they used staves to perform a dance routine that looked like warfare. It was this forensic dance that aroused a giant. So clearly, the endeavor connected to CERN is far more than Switzerland's braggadocio about an engineering feat. The connection between CERN and ritualistic summoning of a sleeping giant, the horned god of Cernunnos, or even Melkart. Both are types of the rising, dying god, and Melkart slept for half the year, which may be why Elijah told the priests of Baal to call louder, because he might be sleeping. Of course, I can only speculate, but I note the connection between Nimrod, Apollo, and Abaddon, Apollyon at CERN, and the history of the region are all highly curious. Apollo was worshipped by the Romans of that area, as well as the Greeks and in central France. Apollo was equated with the Celtic god Atep Omerus. These two characters were combined to create Apollo Atep Omerus, which can be translated as great horseman or possessing a great horse. In the Celtic belief, horses were closely related to the sun. The interesting thing to note is the connection between this idea of Apollo being associated with horses in France where part of the LHC and CERN resides, and what the book of Revelation states about Abaddon, where it says, "And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." End quote. I also note that Revelation chapter 9, after describing how these devil worshippers will be judged during the Great Tribulation period, it ends in verse 21 saying, "Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries," which is the Greek pharmakia, "nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts." So, given these descriptions, is it possible that CERN will have something to do with the opening of the bottomless pit described in Revelation 9?
Yep.